What's going on, guys, and welcome on in. Today I have for you our highly requested equipment slash gear rolling guide. So this is going to be part one of a multi-part series, as gear rolling can get very advanced, very nuanced. To roll a gear from base to plus 15, it's going to cost you 1.2 million gold. So if you really want to min-max things, save a lot of gold, we're going to discuss, everything that goes into it. For now, though, let's keep things extremely simple. And in part one, we're going to talk about just the wyvern sets. So crit set, hit set, and the speed sets. We're going to cover things like what stats to keep an eye out for, as well as a few easy to remember rules for my brand new players on certain things like what to auto keep, auto roll, and then things to pretty much 99% of scenarios like automatically sell. All right. In future parts of series, we'll go farther in. We'll talk about other gear sets. We'll talk about advanced techniques like when to stop rolling, how many min rolls are acceptable, gear stat scoring. We'll also cover, try to expand your base of things to sort of identify and keep for kind of niche and unique units like Fighter Maya, Fire Charlotte, Bruiser SSB. Because in our first part here, I'm going to cover, the basics like offensive stats, defensive stats, very, very simple stuff that, most people will be aware of. But there are a lot of units that, you might see a weird piece of gear that's actually insanely good for those one-off characters. But that'll be for a future time. Guys, let's keep it simple and begin part one of our gear guide. All right, guys, like I said, we're going to focus on the wyvern gear. So speed sets, hit sets, and crit sets. Let's go ahead and first talk about the speed substat in general. I'm going to make a future video talking about why speed, is regarded as the best stat in the game, as well as kind of dispelling some myths and maybe some misconceptions people have about speed. But general rule of thumb, guys, speed set is the king. Speed substat is the king as well for most things, to a lesser extent. But in terms of grading between hit set, crit set, and speed set, right? You're going to value speed sets way above the rest, and this is going to be the rule of thumb until the end of the game, forever. Currently, speed set is way more valuable for a few reasons, right? One, speed set is just that powerful, and two, if you notice, speed set, you need 4 pieces of it, while hit set and crit set both only need 2 pieces. So just generally, right, this is going to be the main set of gear on almost all of your units. Almost every unit in the game can make great use of speed set, so you're going to need a ton of it, and you need double the amount of speed sets compared to hit sets and crit sets, or any 2-piece set like immunity, for example. Let's go ahead and break down what to kind of look out for when we're looking at substats on any hit set, crit set, or speed set for new players. Let's go ahead and begin with offensive units. So the offensive substats would be attack, crit chance, crit damage, and speed. Speed is kind of a universal stat, though. It can be a defensive stat as well. It's just a very good stat, probably the best stat in general. But let's consider it an offensive stat for now and say speed, attack, crit chance, crit damage. And anytime I talk about attack, even health or defense, we're typically talking about percentages. Because for most units in the game, not all of them, but for most, percent is going to outweigh flat stats. I might cover at the end when, to look out for flat stats, because it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's pretty good. But general rule of thumb, guys, for new to mid-game players, just look for percentages. Percents are much better. So, offensive stats. We have, I mentioned 4 offensive stats: attack, crit chance, crit damage, and speed. Let's say we'll take a weapon, for example. Any weapon, hit set, crit set, or speed set in the beginning, you're going to go ahead and try and roll anything that has 3 or more offensive stats. So any combination. This one has attack, crit chance, and crit damage. Let's say there was speed instead of attack, we would still roll it. Any 3 offensive stats that look good, let's go ahead and roll that for any set, because that's going to go ahead and just give you some gear to start with on your fodder units, your cleavers, even some bruisers if we get lucky with other main stats, right? It's just going to be a good start to fishing for stat efficient gear. We're avoiding things like unnecessary stats like effectiveness and effect resist. Effectiveness is not a bad stat, but for now, keep in mind, guys, we want to focus on rolling offensive stats for offensive units. Okay, so number 1 rule of thumb: triple stats, go ahead and roll them. Now, keep in mind, guys, see, even in the beginner video, I have to touch on a exception here, and we're not going to go too far into it. That'll be for future videos, but I have to tell you guys, there are certain items that can't roll certain stats. We're not going to cover all that right now because I want to keep things simple. But if we look at chess pieces, right? On this chest piece, we have speed, crit chance, crit damage. Guys, chests cannot roll attack percent or attack in general. And then weapons, for example, cannot roll defense. So those are a few things you'll want to keep in mind later on. In the beginning, don't worry about it too much. But in case you kind of already grasping it, the triple offensive rule, guys, you can go ahead and maybe be a little bit more lax on it with chess pieces. So the main two you're going to want to be looking out for are crit chance and crit damage. If you can get speed on top of that, perfect. That's way better. Of course, speed is good on everything. But really look out for crit chance, crit damage just in the beginning for your rolling needs for offensive units. Since you know it can't roll attack percent. If you get health, defense, something else that's decent, go ahead and just roll anything with crit chance, crit damage that are good rolls, okay? Kind of a minor adjustment to that first rule of thumb. All right, guys, after offensive subs, let's talk about what defensive subs we're going to want for our, you know, knights, soul weavers, things like that, okay? On any set, same kind of rule of thumb. The defensive substats would be defense percent, HP percent, speed, and effect resist. Effect resist is kind of in an iffy spot. You might hear some endgame players, you know, say how bad it is, how bad effectiveness is. Both effectiveness and effect resist are kind of in a weird spot this season, and that's primarily for real-time arena endgame stuff, guys. You're still going to want some effect resist for your daily requirements like PvP, early PvP, arena, guild wars. Don't worry, you're still going to want effect resist. And if the RTA frenzy mechanics ever change, sorry, we're going into some advanced stuff here, just know that effect resist is still a necessary stat, just the endgame players are sort of shying away from it for some units right now. However, it's still a very good stat, and you're going to want some soul weavers and knights with it, okay? So, to prep for that, same rule of thumb, any three combination of defense, HP, effect resist, or speed, we go ahead and roll. So this converted helmet, for example, speed set, we would, you know, if this was a drop from a wyvern or a crafted piece, we roll this automatically, okay? Try and dodge crit chance here and focus on the defensive stats. This would be a good piece to roll. Now, I have something interesting to say about another rule of thumb if we're moving away from defensive units, offensive units, just in general, guys. If you see a piece of gear that has a combination of effectiveness plus effect resist on the same piece, especially on heroic items, I think it's primarily for heroic items. Let's say, for example, we have a helmet heroic piece that has effectiveness, and let's say, for example, this speed was effect resist. Those two together, when there's only 3 substats, it's almost 99% of the time just an always sell item, okay? To recap, on a 3 substat item like heroic, if your piece has effectiveness plus effect resist together, it's just primarily bad because it's just too many wasted subs. Those two together almost don't work for any units, with the exception of, I think, maybe like Kitty Clarissa, guys. But for almost every single player, unless you're already end game, even your Kitty Clarissa fans out there, they're not even going to be worried about getting both effectiveness plus effect resist. It's mostly just effect resist in the beginning. So just know that having those two together, it's usually an auto trash, auto sell item. Now, I wanted to show you guys this, for example, though. For my new players, this item has effect resist plus effectiveness, right? However, it is an epic helmet, and it does have 4 substats, and they're rolled very, very well. So of course, guys, right, this hits our other rule of thumb, the triple defensive stats, effect resist, health, and speed. So we're going to go ahead and roll this, all right? Keep in mind, though, guys, I talked about offensive stats, and of course, speed set and crit set, and even hit set to a lesser extent, can be good for offensive stats. Typically on your defensive units, so when we're looking for health, defense, effect resist, and speed, crit set is probably not very good. Most knights and soul weavers don't really want crit, at least in the beginning, guys. There's always going to be exceptions later on, but in the beginning, it's a stat you kind of want to shy away from. However, ignore sorry, you're gonna have to break a few rules here and kind of gauge for yourself, but of course we try and just dodge effectiveness, for example, in this situation. Or honestly, even if we hit a few here, if we hit a lot of speed, for example, this could be a different type of helmet for a speed control type unit, right? So we would roll this item. If it hits all effect resist and all effectiveness together, that means it's garbage, and that's why you kind of want to avoid those 2 stats. But we still kind of try and roll this because it has 3 combinations of good stats as well as speed. All right, a little bit of a tricky situation, and one I'm glad I had an example of showing y'all. All right, guys, so we kind of went over the wyvern pieces as well as the offensive and then defensive, you know, rule of thumbs, the triple sets, or the triple substats, excuse me, as well as, you know, being careful of rolling items that have effectiveness plus effect resist together. Keep in mind too, guys, items like hit set, we'll just do a few more rule of thumbs. Hit set, as long as an item has, you know, effectiveness plus speed, health, those kind of synergize better because it is on a hit set, and then our control style fast units can run those, right? But in the beginning, go ahead and just follow the rule of thumb. We want to avoid, we don't want to worry too much about sets in general besides the speed set, because that's going to be the requirement. Usually you want the 4-piece speed set. The substat we can break it as long as the substats are good. So keep the triple stat rule in mind on those pieces, right? Just for my new players, guys. All my mid to late game players, if y'all need extra tips too, we're going to start to break things down. We're going to start breaking more rules like that one I kind of talked about with that helmet. And yeah, we're going to get more advanced with it. But in the beginning, guys, just keep it simple. Try to find substats that are, you know, cohesive and that have all that synergize with the set. And then, of course, the unit you want to roll, offensive/defensive, hit set, find effectiveness, for example. All right. Beyond that, guys, let's cover a few more things. The first thing I want to talk to y'all about is the importance or the lack. Some of y'all may not be taking advantage of this, especially my newer guys. Don't be afraid, guys, of running. I just talked about how good speed set is. However, in the beginning, and even I've seen some late game players use this too, but typically you want speed set, right? However, if you're not focusing already on end game RTA, for example, take advantage of triple crit set, 6 pieces of crit set. A lot of times, guys, this isn't for everybody. Some of y'all might get insanely lucky with your crit rolls, but I know you're out there. Some of y'all can't roll crit to save your life. Don't use this Vildred as a perfect example. He kind of just has trash gear thrown on for world boss, I think. But if you have triple crit set, guys, that's going to give you 36% crit right off the bat. Now, of course, what are we missing when we do triple crit set? We're missing the speed stat bonuses, so we can make that up. I don't have it here, but you would make that up with speed set if your unit really wants it. And typically, for most styles, unless you're running behind a CR pusher like G Purgus or something, we're going to want our DPS unit with more speed, right? So in a perfect world, I'd have this set would have main stat speed boots, crit damage neck, and then like attack ring if we were talking about an offensive unit, which you probably are only running triple crit set on offensive units. But don't I think this is one rule, guys, you should keep in mind, especially when gearing. If you're having trouble rolling crit, triple crit set is extremely good. Now, beyond that, I don't want to overload y'all with info. Let's just talk about flat stats real fast. If I can find the chart, guys, I'll leave it in the description below. But honestly, I think most y'all shouldn't worry about it. It's kind of confusing, and it's something for later. But there's a chart showing what units value flat stats more. So remember my example of 3 good offensive stats or 3 good defensive stats. If you take flat health, flat defense, or flat attack and replace it for one of those units, right? It can be good. You'll usually see things like mages, for example. Let me give a good example. Mages like Spec Tenebria, if you find a lot of flat defense, they will synergize with that very well, even more so than their counterpart defense percent. While most of the units in the game will want defense percent, mages, since they start with such high defense already, flat defense, or is it low defense? Since they start with such low defense already, flat defense works out better. You just have to check the chart. It's something to keep in mind for later. But for now, guys, just keep in mind health percent or percentages in general are just usually better. But if you see a really nice piece and you're kind of confused, maybe look up that chart and that piece might still be good. But in the beginning, guys, just try and save as much gold. Try not to roll on bad pieces. Try not to fish for too many pieces of like, don't try to fish, guys, for the heroic piece on that plus 12 roll, that 4th substat. Like, oh man, if this just last thing just rolls speed, then it fits under cars, triple offensive rule. No. Okay, you're wasting a lot of gold. Remember, 1.2 million gold for every plus 15 item. If you want to start saving gold and, you know, doing better, just start with good base items. Only roll smart stuff. In the beginning, though, guys, be very lax. Sometimes you might have to roll some very bad pieces just to start playing the game. Okay, don't wait forever for a perfect piece. Kind of balance that. You'll get pickier as you move on, but try and save and only roll on efficient gear. All right, let me know, guys, in future videos what you want to see. There's so much more to talk about, but I'm trying my best to keep things simple here and only talk about the wyvern pieces and the basics. All right, let me know how it goes with your rolling, and I got a lot more videos planned for y'all soon. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Catch y'all in the next one.